Sound design in Burial tracks is just outstanding. And even though Burial usually uses noise and textures to create unique pads, in this case I decided to go a simpler route and turn regular instrument like piano into a floaty, grainy pad, which will mimic Burial style pads. As usual, let's start with our chords. So this is B minor, F sharp minor, D major and A major. And then we do our usual trick with the chords, so we take second notes in the triads and put them up an octave. The last triad we don't change, just to like have this finishing touch to the chord progression. It suddenly got more dramatic, and in the last iteration of our chord progression we just move the highest notes in the triads a little bit, make them hit a little bit early, so they will stand out a little bit more and give this like a melodic touch to the chord progression. As usual, I use Lap's piano as the stock instrument to make chords, and then I use Valhalla Supermassive to add reverb and delay with C-Beams preset. It's in the reverb section. But the thing about like Burial pads and the instruments that he uses are usually instruments in the distance, heavily processed, so they are not really that visible in the mix. That's why I heavily processed this piano. As you can see, I rendered the audio of these chords on this separate track, and on this track I used two plugins. The first one is Fracture. Fracture is a gray like glitch delay plugin which is completely free. I used an ambient guitarist preset. To make it not so prominent in the mix, just a little bit of glitchiness in the background of the chords, like it feels like a detuning a piano in a certain way. And then we had Emergence, which I already talked about on this channel. It's an amazing granular delay plugin. I highly recommend it. I just played with different streams. I use like the first LFO knob to change the time and increment of the first and third streams. And it gives just completely different feel to the chords and to the instrument. It has more depth in a way. And then I processed it one more time, and this is the last iteration of our chords. As you can see, I also rendered it. I used a thermal with intercom preset to automate the master dry wet knob to add some distortion to the chords so they will feel like recorded on a tape or something. Then I added a newfangled saturator just on 6 decibels drive to make chords louder. Just cut down a little bit of a lower end of the sound to make more space for the sub that we will use in the future. And here we are. Another pad that I used is this one. This one is just kind of a texture layer pad, and the second pad that I used, which I really liked, and I just layered it with the main chord progression, is this one. All the same chords. To make this pad I used my favorite synth, Generate synth from Newfangled. I used Talking preset, Talking pad. It has some like depth and movement to it, just feels amazing, and it went well really with the chords. Then I used two basses here. The first one is the Reese bass, just it's not the main bass here because I heavily emphasized the sub bass. I think it works better with those chords. The sub bass is also made in Serum. Sub is super simple, some distortion to make it thicker, and both of those basses sound like this. The mid-range one from Serum is just basic MG sine with automated positioning. You don't really need sub here, I just experimented with it. MG low 12 to cut all the high frequencies, and in effects some distortion and multiband compression. And here we got the Reese bass that I used here. Then we go to our drum section. So drums are usually an intricate part about all the future garage and garage tracks in general. So here I have 2 kick layers, 2 snare layers, and they just sound more complex and interesting. So if we just isolate kick and snare, my kicks here are all doubled, and the thing that gives the main groove to the drums of UK Garage is the second snare in each bar. This snare is a little bit off beats, so this is the pattern that you are really used to. And if we move our second snare slightly to the left, like 1/16th note, it gives like this galloping, a little bit offbeat feel, which just gives this unique groove to the drums and to the track in general. Then we adjust our percussion and hi-hat loops. And all together. On kick and snare group, I use Delay, which is a great free plugin. I already showed you it with the tight preset in the design section. It gives like this snappiness and kind of a grainy, sandy delay if you listen closely, so without delay. And with delay. So this more prominent high end in the background. And then we move to the most interesting part, for me at least, in the burial tracks, which are vocals. The way he processes vocals is something special and something outstanding. I don't think that we will be able to do something like this, or at least we should spend like hours and hours on just chopping vocals to get this like perfect loop. But I cheated a little bit and I used vocal and a plugin, which I will show you right here. This is an Abstract Vox plugin, which I think is really cool. As you can see, there are a lot of presets here. So I just picked a couple of those, duplicated the chords, stayed in our B minor scale, and another one. And to this one I felt like adding a little bit of delay and reverb, so I used Valhalla Supermassive as well with lustrous dotted eighth. And then I have the second vocal pad. This one I just turned into like complete pad. So I also picked Abstract Vox and I added a lot of reverb with Dark Matter preset, and I just rendered into an audio track and cut the middle of the voice track, so it's kinda sounds like a pad with this long reverb tail. And the last thing that I did is just cut out this vocal sample, vocal chopped. So I just processed the acapella with Wider plugin, with Emergence that I already showed you, with Portal to add more like crane swells preset, something like this, and chopped it up and chose this little bit in the end of this. And on the master, just the Gullfoss as usual. I think in this particular case Gullfoss did a lot, because brightening everything up with like recover and brighten knobs, it just opened everything up. The overall mix started sounding a lot wider, as you can see, brighter. Yeah, I used brighten knob here. Without Gullfoss, and with Gullfoss, The high end is more readable and like it sounds more powerful and cheery. It just sounds better. As usual, some Soothe 2 with Master by Goodwin, the preset from Master Presets here. The Master Compressor with a little bit of lowered threshold and a little bit of makeup just to compress those drums, which were too bright. Sometimes in burial tracks, drums are really like standing out of the mix, and maybe you should make drums more prominent. But in this case, I wanted chords to be the star of the show, so I just compressed the drums a little bit, made them a little bit less prominent and less visible in the mix. And limiter in the end, just to compress a little bit to give the ceiling to the master channel. And yeah, this is it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it, so leave a comment, leave a like, do all this YouTube stuff. Thank you and bye.